Hello, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Babatunde Adebola, and I'd like to welcome you to this program. It's called the TAD Need to Know series. Today, we have a very wonderful, beautiful, dynamic lady that will be, interviewing. Her name is Nnenna Uboma. She's a resident of Canada. She's originally from Nigeria, but she's doing wonderful things, not just in her career. She's also a minister of the gospel. She's an advocate of digital technology. She will talk a lot analytics. She'll talk about that in a little more detail. But it's just wonderful to get to meet you. You're welcome onto this program, Nnenna. I know that you have a lot of awards you've received recently. I was reading somewhere that you got something about 100 women in 2022. Can you please tell us that? Introduce yourself, and then maybe just start with that award and how that made you feel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to me. So I want to thank you, first of all, before I start to talk. So I've been introduced as Nnenna Uboma. That's rightfully my name. And I work in one of the Canada's big banks. And there I'm a director of analytics. So my career has always been in the data domain. I like to say that I know data end to end, but I kind of pivoted in the analytics section where my role is to derive insights to help organizations move forward. So back to your question, last year I was nominated, or rather I was awarded top 100 Canadian accomplished women. I like to say that I am accomplished. In life, you kind of put a lot of, your to-do, and you start to get accomplished where your life is no longer about yourself, but about the influence and the impact that you make on others. I came into Canada, it's over like 10 years. And apart from the career that I have kind of pursued, I've also been able to, have a lot of impact, especially on the younger ones. So I kind of have this, idea or, passion for leading the younger ones. So over time, for some good years before COVID, I usually will run a leadership series conference for young adults, especially high school. I remember in 2019, I had over 100 high school students come to my program, my summer program, just to learn about brand building. And they also all got the John Maxwell I Lead certification for youths. And I've done that annually. And during COVID, I also decided to, kind of replicate myself in my daughter. And I wanted to see, I have thought so much about entrepreneurship, leadership. And I tell somebody, if you can't lead the one that is next to you, how much more can you lead the ones outside? So I decided to put, those things that I have learned, and I wanted to see if I could build out that model within my daughter. And that was how, I got to motivate her. I got to build what I call the making of the kidpreneur. And that was how Beyond Math came to life. So Beyond Math became, one of those symbols I will say that it does work. You really can actually model and lead young people to do great things. And I do see it in Beyond Math. And that's one achievement that, when I look at my daughter, I say, when I look back and I see someone that I believe will be greater than me, I tell myself I've really accomplished, a goal. I also run a coaching school, which I call to teach analytics and help a lot of immigrants and professionals go into analytics. And that field, I've been able to tutor, hundreds of professionals that are today sitting in different areas of analytics or data roles within organizations. So not only have I really impacted youths, but I've also impacted a lot of professionals. And I think that, within that, coached a lot of them, helped them to come into corporate Canada, and many of them are doing well. So based on some of these things, I was able to get that award.
All right. That's very fantastic, and thanks for an elaborate introduction, which really showcases the many things that you do. it looks like you corrected me. You said what you got there, what you got last year, 2022, was 100 inspiring or something women. Was it Black women or women?
Top 100 accomplished Black women.
Black women.
That
Wow.
award is the award that is usually given every 2 years by Honorable Minister Jean Augustine. So I'm
the
sure
popular
that
Jean Augustine. Okay, okay.
So she was the one. She recognizes Black women that are
Yes.
doing great within the community and gives them an award. She actually writes she actually turns it into a book. And, it's something for me because that book has been circulated in a lot of, public schools within the Mississauga and the Toronto regions where they're able to read about the Black women. And I'm honored to be one of those women that they can read and they will be inspired to be better.
Wow, that's really fantastic and that's commendable. I watched a movie on Jean Augustine earlier this year during the Black History Month. Did you know that she was the one that actually pioneered the whole Black History Initiative in Canada? Wow, it's a story really remarkable, and I'm happy to see that she has not stopped with what she achieved, but she continues to promote that even in the lives of other people. Now, given your own experience and the fact that you also train people, coach people on analytics and other technology things, what would you say are the very things that an immigrant needs to take into consideration in order to absorb or establish him or herself in a vibrant career in Canada? Because I would like to believe that as important as those technology skills are, maybe some of the soft skills are equally important, but I'll let you share with us what has been your experience and what you know over your 10 years experience in working within Canada's environment.
So when I landed into Canada, I was advised that there are only 3 professions that immigrants strive or thrive in Canada. One was IT, the other one was accounting, and the third one was anything medical. So you can call it nursing, medicine, or anything. So for me, I do believe that these 3 careers are actually true to what I was told, that you can thrive in them. However, I looked at technology space and I felt that within technology space that, there's a lot of room for transferable of skills, because the other 2 requires me to go get some, some long school and education, but I found technology as one that you can just, take some training. You don't even need certification, like take some training and immediately you can use that to transition, whether you're talking about doing a PMP, training, or even going in the data analytics space like me, where I didn't need any single certification. I just learned how to, analyze a few data, learn some little programming, and I was good to go. Within the technology space, one thing is that you do have a core hard skill, which makes that space is not for everyone. And also, like people will say, your technical skills will get you through the door. So you do need those technical skills to get through the door. So you need the coding, you need those technical skills if you want to be in technology, but the soft skills keep you in the job, because when they have hired you in, they hired you because you already know the technical skills. So when you are in the job, what people expect is your soft skills. That's always where we have the gap, especially when we come from Africa, because the way we treat colleagues, the way we treat bosses, the way we talk sometimes differ, because here it's more of a collaborative, environment where you have to get, yes from everyone. Even if you're a yes and everybody say no, you can't go. Unlike where we come from, if you're a yes, you can always go. You don't care about whether other people are no. But here you have to get yes. If not, you're still a failure. So it's not because you're a yes that makes you pass, it's because everybody is a yes. So the bigger job is getting everybody to say yes. So somehow we are all, in the process of campaigning and, getting buy-ins and getting those votes for whatever you think you have to be able to go forward.
Wow, okay, so that's a very important point. So it's not just about you knowing what to do, even when your decision differs from other people, it's all about building that collaborative skill to bring other people on board. And if the decision is that your way is not the way, having the ability to adapt, as the case may be, to support what is the more generally accepted view or way of doing it. And that's something that I agree with you. You know, because when I got here, I always saw that everybody was asking for Canadian experience, kind of where's the Canadian experience? And for a while I felt, what's the big deal? Because I had, prior to coming to Canada, I had worked in a consulting company. I had lots of international exposure, and I thought that would be sufficient. But to be honest with you, I've also seen that when it's like the saying, when you get to Rome, you need to act like the Romans do. So you need to identify what are those peculiarities, because as wide, as big as Canada is, there are some peculiarities about this environment, about this culture that I think is important. One of the things I found out, for instance, in Canada is that Canadians, unlike the US, so just looking at differences, because that's why I said the peculiarities. The US people speak, you know, they call it black and white. Here, folks are very polite. And so if you're not careful, you may rub people off the wrong way without even knowing or meaning to. And you know, before long, you sidetrack. And unfortunately, what I've also seen is that the fact that people don't speak to your face does not mean they don't talk. They talk a lot behind you, and that's why it's a challenge. You need to be able to read people, read the body language, be able to respond adequately, and make sure that you're not a victim. And I think I had somebody say that if you don't understand it very quickly, you said the technical skills bring you in, the soft skills keep you within the job, and if you're not careful, they will show you the way out very, very quickly. And that's something that's, you know, we need to learn as people who are coming into the country. But
so one thing I see a lot among the immigrants is that, you know, we get into the jobs and we work so hard, and we believe that, you know, that hard working is what is going to give us the promotions and get us to the very top. And then you find out that you're not being promoted. You get very frustrated, and you kind of feel that, you know, you're being sidetracked. What I've noticed is that your hard work is the baseline, but you just have to find a way to make yourself visible. You have to be visible, and you have to be visible for the right reasons. People have to see you as somebody who is friendly, respectful, collaborative, you know, understands perspectives, and, you know, have the ability to collect feedback, but also have the passion for the organization and for the people. So most times we don't come out that way. So because of that, sometimes it becomes very difficult to rise.
Yeah. There's one model that explains what you've just said very well. It's called the Johari window. And the Johari window basically shares that there are things that we know about ourselves, which everybody knows, that's in our public domain. There are things we know about ourselves which nobody knows, that's our secret. But there are things that everybody sees around us, but we don't see. And that is where you have the blind spots. And a lot of people are constrained because they have those blind spots that everybody in that environment at least sees, but they don't see. And they keep wondering, just like you said, why am I not being promoted? And you suddenly start thinking it's racism. It may not necessarily always be racism. It's just because you're not stepping up your game. And that's why having a feedback mechanism becomes very important in this environment. And I thank you for shedding light on that. Let me segue to something else that is equally important. Given how much of a high flyer you are, I don't think you've even taken time to share the breadth of what you do, but let's just simply say that you're moving, your career is moving very progressively. I know that many people come into this country with high expectations, people who are immigrants, particularly from the continent of Africa, who have high aspirations, the husband and the wife. But one of the things I see increasingly is that if care is not taken, many marriages are not able to withstand the pressure that happens when they come into this part of the world. And I've always wondered why it appears as if what many men say is that it's like the women just develop wings. And they feel that because there's a lot of, because the truth is that in this part of the world, the culture or the authorities seem to favor the women over the men. So some men think that it's because women see that there's a lot of liberty, there are a lot of rights, and so they start to flex their muscle. But I've also had a second school of thought that maybe that's not the case. Can you shed some light on this? Because I'm sure that many people would benefit from this who either have come in newly or who have been here for a while, who are going through pressure. You are definitely doing, riding the crest of your career. And I imagine your husband is equally pressured. How are you managing? What are the things you've observed, not necessarily in your own case, that you like people to take into consideration, even as we continue to, establish ourselves in this part of the world?
Sometimes I want to kind of take people a little bit back to the Bible because some of my core beliefs are kind of rooted in the Bible. So,
okay.
There's a popular version of the Bible that, that everybody quotes. And I think it's in Ephesians chapter 5, where it says, men, love your wives, women, submit to your husbands. And then in the third line, it says, submit ye one to another. So yes. I see a lot of people always quote the second one, both men and women, right? And, when I look back, when I kind of go back to Genesis and I think about the creation, the creation of man and woman and how God has kind of, used those symbols across the scriptures. So the symbol of man, if you look through the scriptures, is always a symbol of strength. It's yes. always a symbol of, strong. It's a symbol of, overarching protection. And when God talks about women, it's a symbol of love. One general passage I know most people know is when he said that he can never forget that if a woman cannot forget a child that latched on her breast, how much more can God forget? So one thing, when I look at Bible, I know that when Bible tries to bring out some very strong, commendations, he speaks about the weakness of one, not necessarily the strength. So when he said women submit, he knew that that is something that he's calling women to do. And when he said men love, he knew that that was something he's calling men to do, because in the natural strength of a woman, she loves. So there was really no need to tell her to love. But in the natural strength of a man, he is that strong, authoritative, when I tell God that man and woman became the two parts of God. Bible says that he's a consuming fire, but Bible says also that he's loving and tendering. So he has the characteristics of a woman. He also has the characteristics of a man. So he tells men love because that is something that maybe naturally he didn't give them. And he tells women to submit because naturally he gives them love, right? And I tell people, like I was talking with somebody yesterday and he said something that there's no woman that will not love a man who tenders to her. And it's just the same way we talk about God. And that's why the Bible said that, for God so loved, because love was something that we always attract the other person irrespective. So yes. I believe that, that when we come here, the same way in our career, we meet a culture shock. That's also the same way we meet a culture shock in the marriages, right? And one thing is that as we all of us are adapting to make the working environment go well.
Yes.
I think that it's our obligation to make the marriage front go well. But if the expectation is that one person has to make it go well, otherwise you say that the person has changed, I then find it as a flaw, because it's not right. If a man comes from Nigeria and goes to the office and he will no longer talk, he will have to smile, he will have to greet politely, to strangers in the office. Yes. I don't know what makes it now to be unmanly when he comes home and he has to talk softly to his wife and children, because that is the culture we live in. So, and then because your wife also goes to work and sees how people are treated there, it becomes also an expectation for her to be treated rightly because she understands that there is humane. So she will be like, you're supposed to treat me as a human being too, because the culture here demands it. So when a culture demands something, it makes it obvious to the two parties. And so people will easily see that, oh, why is this person talking to me this way? Because if you talk about women, what about the children? Mm-hmm. So men don't complain when their children talk back to them. Like you have teenage children where you will say, do this, and the person will say, why? In Nigeria, children don't say why. But one thing I don't hear men complain about is their children that ask them why. So I don't understand why it's always, they always talk about the women that ask why, but nobody talks about the children that ask why. So would it not be that there's a false expectation that they don't want to adjust to the culture?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's just that, like you rightly said, there's a culture shock. Back in Africa, the African culture pushes the man, gives the man the edge. And so everything revolves around the man. But over here, the Western culture, my view is that it's a lot more balanced. There's a lot more equity. Like you even talked about, even children are not just meant to be seen, they can be heard. They have their points of view matter in the scheme of things. And the women, like you said, actually see a difference in how people are treated and want to be treated that way. And so even without meaning to, there's an expectation that changes. The scales go up, and a man that does not recognize that or prefers to live in Africa and live with the old mentality will easily be challenged. I think one other area which somebody has mentioned, and maybe you can share light on that, is that there's an expectation in terms of how you address each other, but there's also a change of expectation in terms of domestic services. And so whereas the woman can get away with a lot of house help, a lot of additional help back in Africa, that may not be the same, and that may put additional pressure on her in this part of the world. Can you talk about that? Maybe that's something that.
Okay. So again, let me take it back again to the same cultural shock and cultural change, right? So back in Africa, you have a wife, right? Okay, it's just some way the culture there is. Most of the women, maybe they might even be working and earning money, but their money is not in demand. It's not in demand because the men still do their own thing. I can't remember, or I haven't really seen most people then in Africa that will be like, oh, you know, they're talking about paying mortgage and the woman is on the table and you're being told, oh, you have to bring 50% of mortgage. Oh, you have to bring 50% of your children's school fees. Oh, you have to bring, like, it's not something you hear so much. A woman's, like people even say a woman's money is a woman's money. So she can use it to buy her clothes and do her hair. In fact, even the men still will even take the women to the stores and be like, okay, come and put woman hair. Yeah. That's number one. Then number two, even these women that are told to, they're not even bringing their money on board, are also not even doing the work. So you will say, oh, my wife was doing everything. No, because she had her sisters with her. She probably had her cousins and nieces, or probably she had housemaids. So is she really doing the work is another question you have to ask, because when you now take her away from Africa, bring her here and tell her, oh, you have to clean the house, you have to cook the food. I think the very first question you should ask yourself is, was she even doing it before? Because if she was not doing it, then why did the expectations just suddenly change? And if she was actually doing it in Nigeria, then when you brought her here, did she have also the expectation that when she comes here, she will be a breadwinner? Because I know back in Africa, we do understand that men are breadwinners. Yes. And women are not breadwinners. Then you bring her here, and then you turn her into a breadwinner. Do you actually think about how should we consume it? How should we feel about it? Because remember, the more you give away your birthright, the more you lose your birthright. You know, it's very, very clear in the Bible. If you look at the topic of Esau and Jacob, Esau gave out a birthright, which cost him a lot. Because even when he wanted to take it back, because he voluntarily gave it away, you know, nature worked it that Jacob took the blessing. And you have to always think about the things you do, because life is all about that give and take. And God kind of makes it work out that way, because he created things to have seed and harvest. It is principle in the Bible. So what you sow, you reap. So when you tell a woman, okay, you have to now, you know, pay all the bills, you have to do this, you have to do that, also consider whether, you know, are you giving away the birthright that even gives you the right to demand all these things that you're seeking for? That's one question you really have to ask. And then look at the psychology of the other person who you're giving that whole work. How does the person now feel? Oh, I now have all this work plus domestic work. Does that put that person in a place where the person will feel happy doing it? Or have you actually put the person in a place where the person is now unhappy, because we have to think about human feelings. So I don't think that it's all about coming to Canada and feeling like you have all the rights. I think it's all about the culture, because if I'm in Nigeria and I have a husband who I do everything, I have to be the one to work, come back and cook, come back and do everything. I think that it will still be the same. You may not necessarily leave the marriage, but you might be very depressed and unhappy. And I think both of them are the same, whether you're left or you're depressed and unhappy. I don't see the benefit it is to the man or the woman.
I think what you're saying, but maybe before I even talk about what you're saying, is what I recall. I attended a program yesterday, class, and was talking about, mental health, and how you can groom yourself and be in a better position. And one of the terms they used was a model called the 4 quadrants of energy. And what it basically means, on the north, you just picture the X and Y axis. Y axis, you have high activity, low activity, and then you have, on the X axis, you have negative mood and positive mood. And so when you have a combination of high activity and positive mood, you have what you call, you're in a performance zone. That means you're happy, you're enjoy what you're doing, you're able to give off your best. But then when you have high activity and negative mood, you're in the survival mode. And that's what I'm hearing, where the activity, you're still expected as a woman to do a lot of things, but you're not particularly happy. And one of the areas is sex. I mean, that suffers because you're not giving your best, because you're worn out, you're not happy. You're still the same expectation that you had back home. It's still being expected of you, but some of the environments that made it work are not there. And then there's another element where you have negative mood and low activity. And that's what results. So the result of, the survival mode is eventually leads to burnout, the burnout zone, where you're exhausted, you feel empty, you feel depressed, you just there, you don't feel, and the woman starts to react, and the man knows, like, what's happening? The last zone is when you have positive mode and then low activity. That's recovery zone. That's where you build yourself back. So I think a lot of education and awareness is important for us when we cross over to this part of the world. We know that the situation is not the same. And one thing you've talked on, without even mentioning the word, is collaboration. A lot more collaboration is required or expected between the man and the woman. If you collaborate in terms of your financing, and I advocate for joint, you use the word breadwinner, but the reality is that in this part of the world, because most people come when they're in their middle age, or they've set up together. There's a term in my native language which says it's togetherness that helps to advance causes better, and that's something that probably becomes more important. The wife is not just a tool, or there's some pretty face that you present to your friends, or and you take care of all the work. The work here requires some substantial effort, but it's important, for what I hear, is that you need to show respect to this woman and not just treat her as a tool. And so you can together work together, and then she'll be, and you also support domestic affairs. To be honest with you, I was able to cook. I mean, I could cook before I got married, but the demands of cooking were not, I didn't feel them for the longest part when we were in Nigeria. But since coming here, I'm learning. I'm not yet there at all. Let me not pretend, just in case my wife watches this. I'm not yet there at all, but I recognize that there's a need to support her in the kitchen, domestic affairs, to ensure that there's a feeling of participation. Yeah, so my wife once told me one day, she makes pastries, and every once in a while I would check with her, how are you doing? How are you doing? And at the end of the day, she told me that even though I didn't necessarily do the work with her, but she felt I supported her in what she did. And I think that's something that we need to unlearn. We need to unlearn some things and learn some things in order to be more effective.
I think that is very essential, because I see a lot of men demand that, okay, the women are meant to do domestic work, especially here. But then they fail to also then demand on themselves, oh, I'm supposed to cater for everything. So that means you have to work 3 times a day. So if you're able to allow if you're able to allow somebody to share your work, I think that it is just natural for you to know without being asked that you should share that person's work. So, because whether you like it or not, every human being has a way of tracking performance of what they are doing mentally.
Yes.
You know, I was talking with a lady and she said, you know, someday she just woke up and she realized that she's the one that is paying the bills, taking care of the children, cooking the house and everything. And she just packed her load that day with no further notice and moved to her parents' house. And that was in Nigeria, not even in Canada. So she's been doing it, and you, the man, feels like it's okay because she's doing it. One day it will just dawn on her that, gosh, what am I doing to myself? Where is this man playing a role in my life? You know, and that day you will pack your load. I tell people a lot is that when God made women the weaker sex, the weaker gender, you know, for men, sex might be something that they demand. For women, it's a show of love. They use it to pay, because naturally they may not have the money, but they naturally will pay in kind. So if they don't really, if you're really offering them nothing, then on what basis would they now feel energized to reward you for the work you?
You really think it's a reward? I'm not sure. I hear what you're saying, but I don't see it as a reward. And you know, the truth is that I see it more as an emotional bank account.
That's what I'm saying. It's a reward for love. It's not a reward for anything. That's what I'm saying. It's a reward for care. It's a reward for love. Because why? That's what women say. It's come from the heart. And because it comes from the heart, it is tied around emotions of care and emotions of love.
Well, so what do you then think about what they call love languages? You know, there are 4 or 5 love languages. Some is the spoken word, words of affirmation. Some is gifts. Some is, you know, and maybe the mistake is that some folks think, oh, because I'm getting items, because I've also been in a situation where on a particular day, a special day, I got something for my wife, and I thought that was going to, you know, buy or pacify her or bring out the best. And she said, no, you can even take this away, because apparently, according to her, I had done some things that were not consistent with the word love. And so to just bribe her for quotes,
you know,
did not achieve the objective.
You know the truth. I always tell people that women respond to kindness.
Yeah.
No, men normally think that it's all about money. Women like money. So if I buy her this, she'll be fine. I mean, the woman on the street will accept it from you because she has nothing, right? It's okay. But the woman in the house will not just accept big gifts as it looks like a bribe. She's because she sees you every day, she's looking for kindness. And kindness is what they call, in the office, they say, show your presence. Don't just come to work, but come with your full self and show your presence. And to a woman, that showing your presence is just a simple word, kindness. So even if you don't give her a big gift on her birthday, if you see her lifting something and you help her, if you see that she's doing something, you come and you guys will do it together. If she complains about something and you remember to do it, not that it's one-off, like it's consistently. Believe me, she'll be the one thinking about your praise everywhere. She'll say, oh, my husband. Oh, because women are meant to talk. That's their nature. They are meant to express themselves, but they express love. So they either express love or they express hatred. So they'll be like, oh, don't mind that my husband. That's how he, oh, my husband is so kind. Because that's just the way they are. So if you actually take the word kindness and use it as your motto, you will see that it will just go a long way for you. There is, whether you're buying this big gift or buying that big gift will not really matter, because, you know, in the summary, you'll be like, oh, this man is so kind to me.
Okay. I guess many people who are watching this are learning from you, and I know it comes from their heart. Let's go back to you, because we spent some time talking about this. You're a woman of many parts. You said you're a director of the analytics within your organization. I'm also aware that you're almost completing your PhD program. You're also a minister in your church. That's my understanding. Where do you get your motivation from? What is the source of your drive? Are you an Ada? Ada means the first daughter you're not. So you have an elder sister. So what then is your motivation? How do you fuel that drive that keeps you going?
So I grew up under a lawyer who, my father was a lawyer and my mother was a teacher, right? And there was always one thing, we had a lot of mates in the house, and my father will always tell you that, you can actually get a level of comfort if you are able to, become somebody like, have the means and the way to get those things. So
yeah,
I grew up wanting to be somebody. That's just me. Because I also saw my mother's passion. She put so much in us because she really wanted us to be somebody. So, she spent a lot of her time. And I grew with it, and I really wanted to be somebody because I also found out that, that when your life is so subjected to the dreams and hopes of others, you just find out that at the end of the day, you're not happy and you just think that you kind of give up a lot for others. But
yes.
if you're able to define your goals and pursue your own goals,
Yes.
then you kind of come to that actualization and fulfillment. So I really asked myself, who do I want to be and what do I think will make me happy? And I started living that life, right? I do have a lot of things that I do, but a lot of things that I do, I also delegate them so that I don't have to be the one doing them.
Okay.
In that way, it helps me to accomplish a lot. But one key thing that motivates me is, who do I want to be? What makes me happy? Is one question that I ask myself every time. And so when I have 3 things that I have to choose from, what I'm really going through my head is, which one will I do that will make me happy? I always tell people, if it doesn't cost the lives of others and it will make you happy, choose that first.
Okay.
So if it doesn't cost harm or the lives of other people,
yes,
but it give you happiness, go for it.
Yeah. So you're in a constant pursuit of your happiness. That is the secret of your motivation. And I guess for the career, you said you wanted to be a technology person. You saw an opening. You saw an opening in the analytics space, and you took advantage of that. And then so the doctorate, also the PhD program, is probably fulfilling some career, some lifelong. I don't know. Are you looking to become a professor, or are you going to end?
So when I started the PhD, I started it just because I just wanted it for profiling, right?
Oh.
So I just wanted to have the DL. I just felt that, at a certain time in your life, you're just basically working towards actualizations. What do you want to be?
Yes.
So I wanted to be a thought leader. I wanted to be somebody that, when I speak, my words kind of carry some weight. And I felt that PhD was going to be good. But then along the line, I said, okay, it may not even be a bad retirement stuff. So maybe when I retire, I just can take 1 or 2 classrooms, that I'll be able to be engaging with people for fun, right? But I just want to, I found out that and again, within the data analytics space, there's a lot of that, PhD comes with some level of authentication in terms of what you're doing. So I always like to play, to the highest band. And for me, it's just all about playing to the highest band.
So is your PhD in data analysis then? Is it in the same field?
It's in risk management. So I didn't want to do it in data analytics, like I said, because data analytics is very technical. But I wanted to take it to be a layer. So, within everything in life, you manage risk, whether you're managing the risk of systems, or you're managing the risk of processes, or you're managing the risk of decisions. But then it's something that will not become applicable, but it will be more into the leadership rather than the core technical, because that kind of keeps you, below, while leadership and strategy starts to take you up above.
Excellent, excellent. That's true. I mean, and that's a very important thing that many people who have a technical background need to recognize, that whereas it's nice to start off as being a technically inclined person, you need to evolve your over time. I also started my career as a pure IT professional. I worked with Cisco's and routers and switches back then when Cisco was, I mean, Cisco is still very popular, but for me, that was the all in all. But after a while, I realized that there was a gap in my knowledge of management, and that's why I pursued a career in consulting. I did that for actively for over 12 years, for which I'm very happy. And of course, I've moved on now to entrepreneurship. I run an organization, I run different things. And so at every point in time, and leadership now becomes very important. Leadership, first of all, be able to inspire yourself, and then you inspire others. And that's something that, you know, we grow into. As long as we have the mind and the ability, aptitude to learn new things, I'm sure that the sky is the limit. So I really, it's really wonderful to hear a story. It's really inspiring. And I know that the best is yet to come. You clearly are setting a pace for yourself and for ladies like you. Have you had the privilege to share, you know, with ladies, maybe young or old, about your story, and how has it been taken? How has it been received?
So one of the questions that I always get asked, like I've been able to speak in some either it's Black leadership forums or women leadership forums, is always, how do you do all together, right?
Yeah.
And for me, one of the things I have done is, like I keep saying, I put my boundaries and my limits, right? I don't do things just because I have to do it or because somebody tells me I have to do it. Yeah. I have to make sure that it aligns within my my goals. One very, you know, you don't have to do everything. For example, if it's all about opportunity cost and scale of preferences. That's the economics. So if you're very busy like me, you have to do some training on Saturdays, then you may have to give up cleaning the house. Maybe you have to bring in a cleaner to clean it. So my point is that, because when you have to do everything, that's when you'll start feeling very, you know, very disturbed, very stressed. And then you start to lament and complain. So of what use is it for you that you do things and then lament throughout for them? You can as well not do it at all, because it's not a source of happiness. So I do tell people that, you know, keeping boundaries for yourself, creating your priority list and things like that are great opportunities for you to really discover yourself and know what really makes you happy. And, you know, and make people know that you're standing within your boundaries. So they will know that this is who you are. This is who you want to be. And they really can't make it, like they just, at a time, they have to adjust with living with you. So that also brings me to the reason why I did Lessons to My Younger Self, which is a new book that I just authored. Okay. I decided to, you know, Lessons to My Younger Self, Lessons to My Younger Self.
Okay. Okay.
So what made me do that was, like you said, you know, a lot of my own learnings, it could be in marriage, it could be in work and things like that. You know, there are already so many challenges and so many wins, right? But sometimes, you know, I said, okay, you can't really talk to everybody. So I decided to start writing down those lessons, basically as a reflection point for myself and for every other person. You know, when you look at these reflection lessons, you tell yourself, oh, you know, did I experience it? Or, you know, if I'm to go through this experience again, how will I do it different? So basically from my own lesson. So one of the lessons, for example, that I remind myself is that, you know, in life, no matter the race, no matter what you take on, it's a baton that you're going to give to somebody else. Yes. So today I'm a director, tomorrow another person will become that director. Even if I open a company today, I mean, look at Steve Jobs. Today, Apple belongs to somebody else. Yes. So if you live your life knowing that, you know, you can't finish it all, that you do have a button and you're going to give it to somebody else, it will kind of help you know that you should enjoy the journey while you're running it and not getting a destination, because you don't even have the destination. The destination belongs to generations. Yeah. And when you understand that, you know, you're just running it, and wherever you stop, just make sure that you have the button to give to another person to continue. That gives you a good perspective to run your own race and gives you a sense of accomplishment as you run it, because it's being defined through the journey. Yeah,
that's very important. Now, you've talked about many things without necessarily using succession planning. You've mentioned that. You've talked about the fact that you need to smell the roses. And that's, you know, what you say is very important, because a lot of us have what we call the destination disease. I have been guilty of that for a long part of my career, where, you know, I've been a project manager. I get a project, a big size project, and it looks very exciting, very, very inspiring. I do it, and next thing I want the next one, and, you know, But what you've identified is a very important point, that you need to appreciate life. Every day is a privilege. No day is a right. Every day is a privilege to enjoy the environment in which you're in, and also, you know, as you move. And one other area that I think is also important is for people who are into, because in this part of the world there are many consultants who are into freelance and do contract jobs. It's also important that you don't just live your life based on those projects when you get a contract. Even in the transition period, you need to celebrate yourself. Don't put yourself under undue pressure. The opportunities are going to come. You just need to position yourself and not look down on yourself. And that's why this collaboration is important. When you get those jobs, ensure you save enough. But even if you don't, even outside of that, ensure that you make the environment conducive for yourself by loving your wife or your husband and enjoying each other's company, so that this whole effort of leaving your home country, as it were, will be worth it. Leaving it very early, I realized that the definition of success for me immigrating immigrating from my country, Nigeria, to a new country is not in monetary terms. That would never be sufficient. It's really around what I tell myself, which I say here, is that the things that you do for yourself, in all likelihood, will die with you, which you've alluded to. But the things you do for, through, and with others are those things that establish your legacy and actually make you live beyond yourself. And it's just the expectations that we keep learning more, how we can be better, how we can give more, how we recognize that life does not revolve around us as individuals. Life revolves around God. We're just part of the bigger equation, part of the bigger ecosystem. And it's wonderful to hear, you know, your story. Your story is inspiring, and I know that there's a lot more ahead of you. Any final words before we wrap this up?
Okay, so my final word, I also take it again from one of the nuggets from my book, which is Lessons to My Younger Self. It's on Amazon. Yep. So one of the nuggets that I always tell everyone is that the winner is not the first to reach the end of the race, but is everyone who was able to reach to that point. So you're not a winner because you got to that point first. Everybody who got to that point is a winner. So don't always bother about the person that got there first. Just focus on getting there. That is your own duty. That's your own winning part. So that's the final word I leave with you. But if you need more, get Lessons to My Younger Self, and you will see a lot of my
Amazon, right? Amazon.
It's on Amazon, yes.
Okay, Amazon. Okay, good stuff. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I really wish you the best. I know that you have a lot more in stock. I've interacted with you on different platforms, so I know that the best is yet to come, even as you look to impact your children, hand over to other people, and I wish you the best as you do. So all the best, and bye for now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, viewers. Thank you very much for listening to this. I hope you will enjoy this, and please feel free to share this with other people so they can benefit from this story. One thing about life is you don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. You can learn from the experiences of others. That's why what we're simply trying to showcase today.
Right.
Thank you, and bye for now.
Bye.